All right, two topics to get to. Nick Hundley and Craig Stammen. There's that. And then Fernando Tatis Jr. being traded, possibly. Bob Nightingale thinks that the Padres need to trade Fernando Tatis Jr. at some point here. So let's start off with the Nick Hundley thing. He was on foul territory yesterday, and obviously I think a lot of Padres fans know now. Craig Stammen was doing the interviewing. He was part of those Zooms talking to guys like Nick Hundley to start off the interview process, but then he ends up being the manager of the team. And yesterday during the press conference and then the side scrums, it was talked about by both of those guys, Stammen and Preller, how Stammen didn't initially know if he wanted to be the manager. Preller approached him about it and gave him confidence that, yes, I want you to do it. And even AJ Preller went into like full college football recruiter mode, or college baseball recruiter mode, let's say. And he talked to Audrey, Craig's wife, and was like, what can we do so that you're comfortable with Craig Stammen becoming the manager of the Padres? Like, he really wanted Craig to be the manager of this team. So I could see how other candidates are like, oh, really? So this is what happened? You guys knew you didn't want me. You just used me to see what I thought about your organization. The guy that you wanted all along was asking questions here, was part of the Zoom and knows the answers. And so you're just wasting my time. I could see how some people thought of it that way, but here was Nick Hundley's response to that.
You brought it up. You brought up Stamon, right? So Stamon was in the interview process where you're going through it, and then he gets hired as the manager. Like, is that knowing the answers to the test? Because was Preller like, well, we tried all these other guys, and now, oh, Craig, you've been in the interview. Why don't we ask you the same questions, and you know the answers? So let's see if you can do that. Like, that was one of the things that confused me, was if he was in the interview process and then he becomes a manager, doesn't that seem like he already knew the answers to the questions?
You know what? That seems a little off, but I've known Craig for a long time, and he actually called me after he got the job and apologized for that. And I have a lot of respect for him, and I know the timeline of it. I know they asked him to interview. He initially declined. Was on the Zoom calls with me and the other candidates, and went through that process. And then they asked him again, and he said yes. So I totally understand that it looks a little weird from the outside. But talking to him, he's a guy that I trust. I know who he is. I know who he believes in, and I know for sure that he wouldn't do something like that.
All right, so there was Nick Hundley's response there, and so it seems like he really respected that Craig Stammen called him to apologize for what happened, and I love that Craig Stammen did that too, because I like thinking of things like, okay, put myself in someone else's shoes. And if Craig Stammen were to put himself in Nick Hundley's shoes, I think it's pretty easy to see how Hundley would not like that, or how Albert Pujols would not like that. I don't know if Stammen apologized to Pujols or apologized to Ruben himself or what, because how did Ruben feel about this? Like, he's one of the finalists for this job, and I'm sure Craig Stammen, like, Craig's even said this, like, they've talked before, and they talk a lot last year when Stammen was one of the special assistants about decisions and the how to manage a bullpen, all that stuff. So for the guy that is part of this to get the job over you, is it disrespect, wasting my time, combination of those? Like, I could see how candidates view it that way. So for Stammen to apologize, that was big of him, and I love that. And it goes back to, like, Stammen being a great human being. So I think the Padres found the right guy in terms of that. Now, what Padres fans care about is, does this guy go help the Padres win games? And we don't know the answer to that, so we'll see. But that was big. That was big for Stammen to go apologize to Nick Hundley like that. I appreciate that. I think Nick Hundley appreciated that. And if he apologized to other guys, then that's great as well. Because these guys are human beings, and I assume these guys that interviewed for this, like, they put their heart and soul, and, like, that's all they thought about for these 2 weeks or however long they were part of this process. And for them maybe to feel like it was fixed from the beginning, at least from AJ's point of view, like he wanted Stammen is what it sounds like, then I could see how these guys feel a certain way about that. But thank you to Stammen for doing that because just that's just a good human being thing to do. Now, getting to Tatis. Bob Nightingale, he was on foul territory today talking about Fernando and how the Padres are going to have to move him at some point. So here's the audio of that.
So many backloaded contracts where they've lost money the last few years. When you talk to GMs around the land, they say these guys are in big time trouble. They're losing money even though they're back in the place. So you can't trade Manny Machado. You can't trade Xander Bogaerts. Tatis's contract, as big as it is actually movable. I don't think they'll trade him this winter. I think at some point, if you talk to GMs, at some point you're going to have to move him. You're going to have to get rid of one of these big contracts. You're not moving Darvish. You're not moving Musgrove or Machado or Bogaerts. He's a guy that's actually still has value, even with that big contract.
All right, so they're going to have to move him at some point is what Bob Nightingale thinks. And I understand what he's saying about, like, yeah, the Manny contract, the Bogaerts contract, Darvish, Musgrove, you could throw Cronenworth in there. Like, you're not going to be moving those guys. And if they have to get rid of a big contract, then Fernando is that guy. But yes, the Padres, they're packing it. They're packing the stadium with not just the ticket sale stuff, but I'm sure the shop. They've got the new City Connect jerseys coming out. That's going to help, I assume, with some revenue. Not going to make up a ton, but that should help. Needing to move Nando, I don't think that they need to move Fernando. When you've got a creative GM like AJ does, haven't people been saying this for a while? Like, the Padres need to move Fernando. They need to move a big contract. Well, from what I've seen, they keep making the playoffs with these big contracts. And I don't know what the full financial situation is of the Padres, but it seems like they're still making things work. And this is with a terrible TV situation because they don't have this TV deal. It's just Padres TV, and they lost a ton of money when Valley Sports, ended up not being a thing and dropping Valley Sports San Diego, right? So when they do get that, because it does seem like in a few years, I think Rob Manfred's commented on it. I think Grupner's commented on it. They're going to try to get under like a full MLB umbrella, I think. Kind of like how there's Apple TV for MLS. They're trying to do that for Major League Baseball. So can that help the Padres? Will that be able to help? I assume that would be able to help. Grubner has, I'm not quoting him, but he has said in the past, like, he think that there's some good news on the horizon here about their situation there. My point is, like, the Padres needing to move a big contract. Would it make someone's job better, easier? Probably. But you got to weigh the talent of Fernando and whoever you'd be able to get if you had money freed up, right? Like, as a fan, again, I don't know the financial situation. What I care about is winning. And so are the Padres going to move Fernando and then cut money, and they're going to spend not up to $340 million? Now, some of that's already been paid to Fernando, but you get the point. Like, they're not going to fulfill the entire Nando contract, what he was making. They're not just replacing parts there. They would be cutting back more money, I would think. And not just, let's say Nando's making $30 million this year. They spend $10 million a year on 3 players to make up for Nando. Are they going to do that, or are they going to end up spending $20 million of that 30 or 25 of that 30, right? So it's weighing that, and that gives me pause where I'm like, I don't think that they're just going to replace the money. I think they'd be cutting back. I just want Fernando. Like, Fernando's a really good baseball player. Does he need to be better in big moments? Did Manny, I think he got 1 hit in the wild card series. Like, yeah, got to be better in the big moments when it matters the most. But they're really talented baseball players. And so I would just like to stick it out with those guys, and you build around those guys. And sure, does it make AJ's job a little bit tougher? Yeah, but like, he was the president of baseball ops when these contracts were handed out. And he's creative. Like, back-to-back 90-plus win seasons with these restrictions, there's more money that's freed up this offseason than I think they had last offseason. So I just think he could be in a little bit of a better situation this offseason. And Bob did say he doesn't think that they're going to move Nando this offseason, but at some point they're going to have to move him. How do you know that? Like, at some point they need to move him. Why? They have to get rid of one of these big contracts. I just don't see why they need to. They need to. It's one thing if like attendance went down and so there's not that, but if attendance is going to keep being as good as it is, and I think it will, then I don't see why they need to. Maybe I'm just getting caught in the moment right here because they have had success in the regular season and they are winning a bunch of games in the regular season. So it's like it's good still with Nando's big contract, all these big contracts. Like, there is a level of success here. Obviously, it's not the biggest level, but there is a level of success here. And keeping one of your most talented players, to me, should be the priority over let's just clear this big contract to clear up some money or to spend less money on the roster. And he's talking to other GMs. Other GMs don't know the full Padres situation. You know, maybe they know more than we do because they've had conversations with people with the Padres, but like they don't know it entirely. So they're just saying that. And maybe they're saying that because they want that to happen, because they don't want Nando to be on the Padres because they know how talented he is, right? So, yeah. One thing, I did want to touch on one more Stammen point about the whole process there. So I can understand, my point here about this is I can understand why Stammen was part of the interview process to start on Zoom. He was talking to candidates and being part of that, and then was pulled in to be manager and be in that race, because initially his initial thing was, no, I've got family in Ohio. Like, we're not moving this, to be the manager of the team. But then once he realized, like, oh, I'm AJ's guy, I can actually get this job. We love San Diego. Like, maybe let's make this sacrifice. Like, he's coming on to the Zoom and asking Audrey, my wife, how can we make this work? Like, he really wants me to be the manager, and our life could be really great with the Padres helping us out there and whatever we need. Like, that's what Craig said yesterday, whatever we need. So how about we take that opportunity? Like, this is an opportunity I'm not going to get again. And the Padres, they don't just care about me. They're caring about you, Audrey. They're caring about our family. How about let's take that opportunity? This isn't the Rockies. This is the Padres. Like, take this opportunity because you might not get it again. This is a really cool opportunity, and they want me for this. They want us, not just me. They want us for this. So after talking, I can see how Craig's like, yeah, let me go do this. Let me be all in on this. And so I think that's probably part of how Craig apologized to Nick. He was like, he probably said, man, I'm sorry how this played out. I know it looks bad, but let me just walk you through my process here. How initially I didn't want to be the manager. I didn't, I have family in Ohio. I just wasn't going to do that. But they wanted me to be a part of the process. I'm a special assistant like you are with the Rangers. They value my opinion. And so I was part of it, asking questions, trying to help the organization. And then what I couldn't control was AJ coming to me, and he thought that I'd be great to be the manager, and he believed in me. And so that's where I really started thinking about it. I wasn't thinking about it previously. So I ended up thinking about it, talk it through with my family, and that's how things happened. This was not the plan all along. I know it could come off bad, but I just want you to know, Nick, that wasn't the plan. And things just happened that way. I wouldn't have been part of the interview process, interviewing people, if I knew I was going to be in this process, or if I wanted to be the manager. That's not how this would have happened, obviously. I have too much respect for those interviewing. I wasn't going to do that. So I apologize for that. And yeah, like that's probably what the apology was. to Nick, part of it. So again, I really respect Craig. I really respect Craig for that. And yeah, that's what I've got here today. A couple things to talk about there. Stammen, now manager of the Padres, AJ Preller and the front office, they are in Vegas for the GM meetings. They won that pickleball tournament against the Dodgers. I saw Jesse Rogers tweet about that. So expect a banner going up at Petco about that. Just kidding. That's a joke for anyone that doesn't realize that. But yeah, GM meetings happening now. We'll see if we hear anything. Will we get an AJ extension? Probably not during this week, but maybe next week, maybe before the new year. We shall see.